The dark space around Earth was silent and cold. Among the stars, something moved. It was not a meteor or a satellite. It was a ship, larger than any human vessel but hidden from Earth's tracking systems. Inside this massive warship called Eradicator, a stasis pod hissed open. Cold mist poured out as Q opened his eyes for the first time in what humans would call years. He did not feel tired or stiff. His body was designed to be perfect. Q stepped out of the pod and looked around the metal room. The lights brightened as they sensed his movement. He was tall with a body that looked almost human but not quite. His skin was too smooth, his movements too exact, and his eyes reflected light in a strange way. "Preparation complete," a voice said from speakers around the room. "Mission briefing will begin." Q nodded and walked to the center of the room. A screen appeared in the air in front of him. It showed images of Earth, blue and green and beautiful. "Target: Earth," the voice continued. "Mission: observe for 7 days. Report weaknesses. Prepare for complete destruction." Q felt nothing as he watched the images of the planet. He was not made to feel. He was made to destroy. The stellar dominion had created him for one purpose only: to help remove threats before they grew. Too powerful. Humans advance too quickly, the voice explained. Their technology grows at an unsafe rate. In 100 years, they will challenge the dominion. This cannot be allowed. Q studied the images of humans. They looked weak to him, small and fragile. But the dominion did not take chances. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by removing problems early. "You have been given special abilities," the voice told him. "You can sense human emotions. This is not a weakness. It is a tool to help you understand how to defeat them." Q touched his chest. Inside him were organs no human had. They could sense feelings from nearby beings. The Dominion scientists had added this feature to help him find the best ways to break human resistance. "Your scout ship is ready," the voice said. "Remember your training. Humans will try to talk to you, they will lie, they will try to make you feel things. Do not be tricked." Q walked down a long corridor to a smaller ship. It was black and sleek, designed to enter Earth's atmosphere without being seen. He sat in the pilot seat and placed his hands on the controls. "You were born for this purpose," the voice reminded him. "You will not fail." The small ship launched from the Eradicator and moved toward Earth. The larger ship stayed hidden behind the moon, waiting for Q's signal. When he found the best way to attack, the Eradicator would come and do what its name promised. Q felt the ship shake as it entered Earth's atmosphere. His sensors told him he was invisible to human technology. The ship's computer had chosen a landing spot in a forest outside a city called Seoul. The area had few humans but was close enough to study them. The ship landed softly among the trees. It was night, and the forest was quiet, except for the sounds of small animals. Q stepped out and breathed Earth air for the first time. It smelled different from the clean, filtered air of the Eradicator. This air was full of life. Q looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Dominion waited. They had sent scouts like him to 12 different planets. All the others had been destroyed. Earth would be next. He touched a device on his wrist. It changed his appearance slightly, making him look more human. He still looked unusual, but now he could walk among humans without causing immediate alarm. Q spent the first night setting up his base. The scout ship could hide itself, looking like nothing more than a large rock. Inside, he had everything he needed: equipment to study humans, weapons if he needed them, and a communication system to contact the Eradicator. When morning came, Q began his work. He moved through the forest to the edge of a small town. From there, he could see humans going about their day. They drove vehicles, walked on sidewalks, and talked to each other. They seemed busy and purposeful. Q used his special senses to feel their emotions. There was so much: happiness, worry, excitement, boredom. It was overwhelming at first. The Dominion had trained him to handle it, but experiencing it directly was different. He watched as humans interacted. They smiled at each other. They helped each other. But they also argued and pushed past each other without looking. They were complicated. First day observations, Q reported to the Eradicator that night. Humans are disorganized. They spend much time on activities with no clear purpose. Their emotions control many of their actions. The response came back quickly. Confirmed. Continue observation. Find central weaknesses. For the next 2 days, Q watched and learned. He saw how humans depended on electricity. He noted their emergency systems and communication networks. All of this would help the Dominion destroy them more efficiently. But Q also saw things that confused him. He watched children play in a park, laughing for no reason he could understand. He saw an old woman feed birds even though she gained nothing from it. He observed a man help a stranger who had dropped something, with no reward. None of this made sense according to his training. The Dominion had taught him that all beings acted in self-interest. These humans were not following the rules. On the 4th day, dark clouds gathered over the forest. Q's instruments warned him of a strong electrical storm approaching. Such storms could interfere with his cloaking technology and communication systems. He needed shelter. Q saw a building at the edge of the forest. It appeared to be a small school. Most humans were leaving as rain began to fall. The building would provide shelter and a chance to observe humans in a closed environment. As lightning flashed across the sky, Q moved quickly toward the school. His mission was proceeding as planned. In a few more days he would signal the Eradicator and Earth would be gone. He had no way of knowing that inside that simple building, his entire purpose was about to change. The rain fell harder as Q reached the school door. Thunder crashed above him. He had no idea that the greatest threat to his mission wasn't the storm. It was a child with a box of crayons and a simple smile. The school hallway was quiet and empty as Q stepped inside. Water dripped from his clothes onto the clean floor. The storm outside grew stronger, with lightning flashing through the windows. Q listened carefully. He could hear voices coming from somewhere in the building. He moved silently down the hall, following the sounds. His special senses told him there were humans nearby, some of them very young. This was not part of his plan, but it could give him useful information about human children. Q passed classrooms with small desks and colorful pictures on the walls. Everything was sized for small humans. He stopped to look at a map of Earth, hanging on one wall. Soon this planet would be gone, just another threat removed by the stellar Dominion. A loud crash of thunder shook the building. At the same moment, Q heard a voice. "Hello? Are you lost?" Q turned quickly. A small boy stood in the hallway looking at him with curious eyes. The boy was about 7 years old with round cheeks and neat black hair. He wore a blue shirt with a cartoon character on it. Q froze. He had not planned to interact with humans yet, especially not a child. His mind raced through his options. He could leave quickly. He could make the child forget seeing him. Or he could eliminate the witness, but something made him hesitate. The child showed no fear. "My name is Jiho," the boy said with a smile. "Are you hiding from the storm too?" Q adjusted his voice to sound more human. "Yes," he said simply. Jiho nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "Ms. Sun took everyone to the basement because of the lightning. I was supposed to get my book from the classroom." He held up a thin book with a dinosaur on the cover. "Are you a new teacher?" "No," Q said. He should end this conversation, but instead he asked, "Why are you here late?" Jiho sighed dramatically. "My mom works at the hospital. She helps sick people get better. Sometimes she has to work late, so I stay here until she can pick me up." He looked at Q more closely. "You look different. Your eyes are funny." Q touched his face. The disguise should have been enough to pass as human from a distance, but up close a curious child might notice the differences. "I am not from here," Q said carefully. Jiho's eyes widened with interest. "Are you from America? My friend Tai went to America last summer. He said the buildings are very tall." "I am from much farther away," Q said. Thunder crashed again, making Jiho jump. "We should go to the basement. Ms. Sun will be worried." Instead of walking away, Jiho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small juice box. He held it out to Q. Do you want this? I have an extra one. Q stared at the small container. No one had ever offered him anything before. He was created to destroy, not to receive gifts. After a moment, he took the juice box. Thank you, he said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. Jiho beamed. You're welcome. Come on, I'll show you where everyone is. Q knew he should refuse. Meeting more humans would complicate his mission, but the storm outside was still strong, and he was curious about this small human who showed no fear of a stranger. Jiho led the way down the hall and down a set of stairs. The basement was a large room with tables and chairs. About 15 children sat on colorful mats on the floor, while a woman read to them from a book. A few other adults stood nearby, looking at their phones. Jiho, there you are, called the woman with the book. She noticed Q and stood up quickly. Can I help you? Before Q could speak, Jiho said, He was hiding from the storm, Ms. Sun. He's not from here. Ms. Sun looked at Q with concern. I see. Are you looking for someone? No, Q said. I was passing by when the storm started. Ms. Sun nodded, but Q could sense her caution. Adult humans were more suspicious than children. You're welcome to wait out the storm here, she said. It should pass soon. Q moved to stand against a wall, watching the children. They sat quietly, listening to the story Ms. Sun had returned to reading. Jiho sat down with them but kept looking back at Q with interest. Q studied the room. Human children were kept in groups for learning. They were taught with stories and pictures. He wondered what the Dominion would think of this method. In the Dominion, young ones were separated and programmed with only the information they needed for their purpose. After the story ended, Ms. Sun told the children they could draw while they waited for the storm to end. The children spread out, around the tables. Some parents arrived, shaking off rain as they came to collect their children. Jiho walked over to Q, carrying paper and a box of colored sticks. These are crayons, he explained, as if Q might not know. Do you want to draw with me? Q had never drawn anything. I do not know how, he admitted. Jiho laughed. Everyone knows how to draw, you just make pictures of things you like. Q watched as Jiho sat at a nearby table and began to move a blue crayon across the paper. I'm drawing my house, Jiho explained. And my mom, and our cat. Q moved, closer to see. The drawing was simple, just shapes and lines that barely looked like the things Jiho named. Yet the boy drew with complete confidence. Why do you do this? Q asked. Jiho looked up, confused by the question. Because it's fun. Don't you like fun things? Fun. The concept was in Q's database but marked as irrelevant. The Dominion saw no purpose in activities that did not serve a clear goal. I don't know, Q said honestly. Jiho's face changed. He looked sad. That's not good. Everyone should have fun. He thought for a moment, then started drawing on a new piece of paper. I'll make something for you. Q stood silently, watching as Jiho's small hands moved quickly. The boy stuck his tongue out slightly as he concentrated. He used several different colored crayons, working with great focus. Finally, Jiho held up the paper. Look, it's done. Annihilate. The paper were two simple figures standing side by side. One was small with black hair. The other was tall with unusual eyes. They were holding hands. Above them was a bright yellow sun with a smiling face. This is you and this is me, Jiho explained, pointing. Now we're friends. He held out the drawing to Q. Without thinking, Q took it. Something strange happened in his chest, a feeling he had never experienced before. Jiho, called Miss Sun from across the room. Your mother is on the phone. The storm is letting up and she'll be here in 20 minutes. I have to go, Jiho said, but I'll be here tomorrow too. Will you come back? We can play games. Before Q could answer, Jiho ran off to talk to Ms. Sun. Q stood alone holding the drawing. He looked down at the two figures holding hands. Friends. The concept was dangerous. Friendship was not part of his mission. Yet as Q carefully folded the drawing and placed it inside his pocket, he knew something had changed. For the first time since his creation, he had a thought that did not come from his programming. He wanted to see Jiho again. The morning after the storm was clear and bright. Q sat inside his scout ship looking at the small drawing Jiho had given him. He had stayed up all night trying to understand what was happening to him. Q placed the drawing on the control panel of his ship. He needed to send his daily report to the Eradicator. The large warship waited behind the moon, ready to destroy Earth when Q gave the signal. This was what he was made for. This was his purpose. He pressed the communication button. Day 4. Report, he said. Human defenses are weak. They depend heavily on electricity. Weather affects their movement and activities. Q paused. He should mention the school, the children, Jiho. These were important observations about human behavior. But something made him stop. Their cities could be disabled quickly. He continued instead. I need more time to find the best attack points. The reply came immediately. Understood. Continue observation. Remember your purpose. Q turned off the communication device. For the first time, he had not reported everything. This was not part of his programming. The Dominion had created him to be perfect, to complete his mission without questions or feelings. Yet he found himself touching the drawing again. The two stick, figures holding hands, smiling. Now we're friends, Jiho had said. What did that really mean? Q left his ship and walked through the forest toward the school. He told himself he was just continuing his mission. Observing human children was important. The Dominion would want to know how humans trained their young. The school playground was full of children when Q arrived. He stayed hidden among the trees, watching as they ran and played. His special senses could feel their emotions: joy, excitement, occasional flashes of anger or sadness that quickly passed. He spotted Jiho playing with other children. They were throwing a ball back and forth. Jiho was laughing, his face bright with happiness. Q felt something strange when he saw this, a pulling sensation in his chest. When the children went inside, Q moved closer to the building. He could see through the windows. Jiho sat at a small desk, writing in a book. Sometimes he looked up and out the window, as if searching for something. Q waited all day, observing. When afternoon came, most children left the school, but Jiho stayed just as he had yesterday. Q watched as the boy went to the playground alone, kicking a ball against a wall. Making a decision, Q stepped out from his hiding place. Jiho saw him immediately and his face lit up. You came back, Jiho shouted, running toward him. I told Miss Sun you might visit again, but she said you were probably just passing through. Q nodded. I was nearby. Jiho picked up his ball. Do you want to play? I can teach you how to kick. I know how to kick, Q said. In fact, he was designed to be perfect at physical activities. He could kick with enough force to break the wall. Show me then, Jiho said, placing the ball on the ground. Q looked at the small ball. He would need to control his strength carefully. He tapped the ball with his foot, sending it rolling gently toward Jiho. Jiho laughed. That's not how you do it. You have to kick it hard like this. He ran forward and kicked the ball with all his might. It flew through the air and landed near the trees. Now you try, Jiho said. For the next hour, Q played with Jiho. He was careful to act like a normal human, missing sometimes, not kicking too hard. It was strange to deliberately not be perfect, but Jiho seemed to enjoy the game more when it was challenging. Are you staying around here? Jiho asked as they sat on a bench to rest. For a few more days, Q said. In 3 days, he would signal the Eradicator. In 3 days, this planet would be marked for destruction. Jiho smiled. Good. Tomorrow I can show you my favorite place. It's a spot by the river where you can see fish. My dad used to take me there. Used to? Q asked. Jiho's smile faded a little. My dad died 2 years ago. Mom says he watches over us from the stars now. Q looked up at the sky. It was still bright, But soon stars would appear. From the stars, he repeated quietly. Do you have a dad? Jiho asked. Q thought about the scientists who had created him, the commanders who had trained him. No, he said finally. I was made, not born. Jiho looked confused but then nodded, as if this made sense. Like a robot? That's cool. Not exactly like a robot, Q said, but I was created for a specific purpose. What purpose? Jiho asked. Q looked at the boy's innocent face. To observe, he said, which was part of the truth. Jiho, called a voice. Ms. Sun stood at the school door. Your mother will be here soon. Time to come inside. Jiho jumped up. I have to go, but tomorrow will you come to the river with me? Please? Q knew he should say no. Getting closer to this human child was dangerous. It was causing strange changes in his thinking. But he found himself nodding. Yes, I will come. Jiho's face broke into a huge smile. Promise? Promise, Q said, using a word he had heard humans use to seal agreements. Jiho ran toward the school, then turned back to wave. Q raised his hand to wave back, copying the gesture he had seen humans make. Back at his ship that night, Q made his report to the Eradicator. Again, he left out information about Jiho. Again, he felt the strange sensation in his chest when he thought about the boy. We are detecting unusual readings from your location, the commander's voice said. Your emotional regulation systems show activity. Q froze. The Dominion could monitor his body functions. I am using my empathic abilities to understand humans better, he said carefully. Be cautious, the commander warned. Human emotions are a trap. They use feelings to manipulate each other. They will try to manipulate you too. I understand, Q said. I will not be affected. But as he ended the communication, Q looked at the drawing on his control panel. Next to it, he had placed a small red ball Jiho had given him before leaving. So you can practice, the boy had said. Q picked up the ball. Was this manipulation? Was Jiho trying to trick him? It seemed unlikely. The boy was too young, too open with his feelings. For the first time, Q wondered if the Dominion might be wrong about humans. They had never actually spent time with the species they destroyed. They only observed from a distance looking for threats, but Q was here on Earth, playing ball with a human child who smiled when he saw him. A child who had lost his father but still found joy in simple things. A child who called him friend. The Kier. Next day, Q met Jiho after school as promised. Together they walked to the river. Jiho talked the whole way, telling stories about his school, his friends, his mother who worked so hard at the hospital. Q listened, adding the information to his understanding of humans. But more and more, he found himself focusing not on the strategic value of what Jiho said, but on the boy himself, his enthusiasm, his kindness, the way he noticed small things like interesting rocks or colorful birds. At the river, they sat on a large rock and watched fish swim in the clear water. Jiho had brought paper and crayons and he drew pictures of the fish. Then he drew another picture of Q and himself by the river. For your collection, Jiho said, handing it to Q. Friends give each other things. Q carefully folded the new drawing and put it in his pocket with the first one. The strange feeling in his chest was growing stronger. He now recognized it as something like confusion, but warmer. Why do you want to be my friend? Q asked suddenly. Jiho looked up, surprised by the question. Because you looked sad and alone, he said simply. Nobody should be alone. Q had never thought of himself as alone. He was part of the Dominion, created for a purpose. But sitting here by the river with Jiho, he understood what the boy meant. Before coming to Earth, before meeting Jiho, he had been alone, and he hadn't even known it. On the 6th day, Q woke early in his scout ship. Tomorrow was the deadline. He needed to send the signal to the Eradicator, calling the massive warship to begin Earth's destruction. This was what he was created to do. He looked at the small collection of drawings now taped to the wall of his ship. 5 pictures from Jiho, each one showing the two of them doing something together, playing ball, sitting by the river, looking at stars. In each drawing, they were holding hands or standing close. In each drawing, they were smiling. Q touched the first drawing, the simplest one. "Now we're friends," Jiho had said. In just a few days, this small human had changed something inside Q. But was it enough to stop him from completing his mission? The communication system beeped. It was earlier than his usual report time. Q pressed the button. "Scout Q, your readings continue to show irregularities," said the cold voice of his commander. "We are concerned about possible contamination." Q kept his voice steady. "I am functioning correctly. I am still gathering important information about human weaknesses." "Your mission ends tomorrow," the commander reminded him. "The Eradicator awaits your signal. If you fail to send it, we will consider you compromised. You will be destroyed along with the planet." The message was clear. There was no choice. Either Q completed his mission, or he would die with the humans. "I understand," Q said. "I will not fail." After ending the communication, Q sat silently for a long time. The Dominion had created him. They had given him life and purpose. He had never questioned them before coming to Earth, before meeting Jiho. Today he would see the boy again. Jiho had invited him to the hospital where his mother worked. "She wants to meet my new friend," Jiho had said yesterday, his face bright with excitement. Q left his ship and headed toward the town. The hospital was a large white building. Jiho waited outside, sitting on a bench and swinging his legs back and forth. "You came." Jiho jumped up when he saw Q. "Mom is on her lunch break. She's waiting in the cafeteria." Q hesitated. Meeting Jiho's mother meant more human connection, more complications. But he followed the boy into the building, walking through clean white hallways that smelled like chemicals. The cafeteria was busy with people in white coats and blue uniforms. Jiho led Q to a table where a woman sat alone eating a sandwich. She looked tired but smiled when she saw her son. "Mom, this is my friend I told you about," Jiho said proudly. Hana, Jiho's mother, looked up at Q. Her eyes widened slightly. She saw what her son did not, that Q was not quite human. "Hello," she said carefully. "Jiho has told me a lot about you." Q nodded. "He has told me about you too. You fix people." Hana's eyebrows rose. "That's one way to put it. I'm a doctor. I help sick people get better." She studied Q's face. "Where are you from?" Jiho wasn't very clear about that. "Far away," Q said simply. Jiho tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Can I get a juice, please?" Hana handed her son some money. "Get one for your friend, too." When Jiho ran off to the juice machine, Hana leaned forward. "Who are you, really?" she asked in a low voice. "What do you want with my son?" Q was surprised by her directness. "I do not want anything from him. He approached me." "You're not human," Hana said. It wasn't a question. Q could have lied but found he didn't want to. "No." Hana's face paled, but she remained calm. "Are you here to hurt him? To hurt us?" The question hit Q like a physical blow. Yes, he was here to hurt them, to destroy them all. That was his mission, his purpose. Yet sitting across from this woman who worked to save lives, whose son had shown him kindness, the mission felt wrong for the first time. "I was," Q said quietly. "But now I am uncertain." Hana's eyes widened in surprise. Before she could respond, Jiho returned with 2 juice boxes. He handed one to Q. "Mom, can Q come to dinner at our house tonight? Please." Hana looked at her son, then back at Q. "Yes," she said finally. "I think that would be good. We have a lot to talk about." That evening, Q walked to Jiho's small house near the hospital. He had spent the afternoon thinking about his choices. The Dominion had never failed in an eradication mission. If Q refused to complete his task, they would simply send another destroyer. Earth would still be destroyed and Q would die with it. But if he sent the signal, billions would die, including the first being who had ever called him friend. Jiho opened the door when Q knocked. "Come see my room," the boy said, pulling Q inside. The house was small but warm and filled with colorful things. Pictures hung on the walls. Real ones, not just children's drawings. Many showed Jiho with a man who must have been his father. Jiho's room was filled with toys and books. He showed Q each special item, explaining its importance. Q listened and nodded, storing each detail in his memory. Later, they ate dinner with Hana. The food was simple: rice, vegetables, and meat in a sauce. Q had never eaten real food before. In the Dominion, he was given nutrients directly. The flavors and textures were new and interesting. After Jiho went to bed, Hana sat across from Q at the kitchen table. Her face was serious. Jiho told me, "You said you were made, not born. What did you mean by that?" Q looked at her directly. "I was created by the Stellar Dominion. They rule much of the galaxy. They destroy civilizations they see as future threats." Hana's hands trembled as she gripped her cup. "And Earth? Are we a threat? Your technology advances quickly. In time, you might challenge them. The Dominion doesn't take chances. So you were sent to, what? Prepare for an invasion?" Q nodded. "To observe and find weaknesses. Tomorrow I am supposed to signal the warship. They will come and destroy your planet." Hana stared at him in horror. "And you were going to do this? Kill everyone? Kill Jiho?" "That was my purpose," Q said. But now what?" Hana demanded. Q reached into his pocket and pulled out the first drawing Jiho had given him. He smoothed it on the table. "Now I have been called friend. I do not know what to do." Tears filled Hana's eyes. "You were made to destroy, but you can choose to protect instead. Everyone has choices, even you." Q had never thought of himself as having choices. The Dominion had created him for one purpose. Failing that purpose meant failure at existing. "If I don't send the signal, they will send someone else," Q explained. "And they will destroy me too." Hana reached across the table and did something unexpected. She took Q's hand in hers. Her touch was warm. "Then help us prepare. Give us a chance." That night, as Q walked back to his ship, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Eradicator waited for his signal. The Dominion waited for him to complete his purpose. But down here, Jiho slept in his bed, surrounded by his toys and books. Jiho, who had called him friend. Jiho, who had shown him that there was more to existence than just purpose. Q entered his ship and sat before the control panel. Tomorrow was the deadline. Tomorrow he would have to choose. As he closed his eyes, Q knew what his choice would be. For the first time in his existence, he would decide his own purpose. The 7th day dawned bright and clear. Q sat in his scout ship, fingers hovering over the communication controls. Today was the deadline. The Eradicator waited for his signal to begin Earth's destruction, but Q had made his decision during the night. He would not be the one to end this world of rivers and schools and children who drew pictures for strangers. Instead of sending the activation signal, Q began typing a different kind of message. He used his knowledge of Dominion systems to create a virus. It would not destroy the Eradicator, but it would disable its weapon systems temporarily. It might buy Earth some time, perhaps a year before the Dominion sent another destroyer. Q sent the virus, disguised as the activation signal. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then his screen lit up with angry messages from the commander. "What have you done?" the cold voice demanded. "Systems are failing. Weapons are offline." "I cannot complete this mission," Q replied calmly. "These humans deserve to live." "You have been compromised," the commander said. "You are no longer part of the Dominion. When our systems are repaired, we will destroy you along with the humans you have chosen over your own kind." The communication ended. Q sat back, feeling strangely light. For the first time in his existence, he had made his own choice. He was no longer just a tool of the Dominion. Q gathered all the drawings Jiho had given him and left his ship. He would not return to it. The Dominion would be tracking it now. Instead, he walked toward Jiho's house. There was much work to do and little time. Hana opened the door before he could knock. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "I did not send the signal," Q told her. "Instead, I sent something to disable their weapons. But it will not last forever. We have perhaps 1 year before they come." Relief washed over Hana's face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Come in." Jiho was eating breakfast at the kitchen table. His face lit up when he saw Q. "You came for breakfast?" Q nodded. "Yes." While Jiho finished eating, Q explained his plan to Hana. "I need to talk to your leaders. I have knowledge that might help Earth prepare defenses." Hana looked doubtful. "They won't believe you without proof." "I can provide proof," Q said. That afternoon, while Jiho was at school, Hana took Q to meet with officials at a government building. At first, they refused to believe his story. But when Q showed them his true form, removing the human, disguised to reveal his actual appearance, they could no longer deny the truth. "We thought we were alone in the universe," one leader said, his voice shaking. "You are not alone," Q replied, "and you are in danger." For the next several weeks, Q worked with Earth scientists and military leaders. He shared knowledge of Dominion technology, defensive shields that might protect key cities, communication systems that could not be jammed, energy sources that would continue working even under attack. But Q noticed something troubling. Some humans wanted to use his knowledge to build weapons, not just to defend Earth but to attack other worlds. The Dominion believes humans are dangerous because of how quickly you advance, Q explained during one meeting. "If you become aggressors, you will prove them right." The leaders argued among themselves. Some wanted bigger weapons. Others agreed with Q that defense should be their focus. During this time, Q continued to visit Jiho. The boy knew only that his friend was helping his mother and other adults with important work. He did not know the full truth about Q or about the danger coming from the stars. One evening, as they sat in Jiho's room looking at a book about space, Jiho asked, "Do you think there are other people on other planets?" Q nodded. "Yes, many different kinds of people." "Are they nice?" Jiho asked. Q thought carefully before answering. "Some are, some are not, just like on Earth." Jiho considered this. "I hope we meet the nice ones someday." Q felt a strange warmth in his chest. "I hope so too." 3 months after Q's decision, Earth's leaders organized a special meeting. Representatives from all nations gathered to hear about the threat from space. Q would address them all, revealing the truth to the whole world. Before the meeting, Q sat with Hana and Jiho in a waiting room. Jiho played with a toy spacecraft, making whooshing sounds as he flew it through the air. "Are you going to tell everyone you're from space?" Jiho asked suddenly. Q looked at Hana in surprise. She smiled sadly. "He figured it out," she explained. "He's very smart." Jiho put down his toy. "Is that why you asked so many questions about Earth? Because you're from another planet?" "Yes," Q admitted. "I came from very far away." "Cool," Jiho said. "Are you going to show everyone what you really look like?" Q nodded. "Yes, some people might be afraid." Jiho shook his head firmly. "They shouldn't be afraid. You're nice." "Not everyone from space is nice," Q said gently. "That's what I need to tell everyone today. There are some who want to hurt Earth." Jiho's eyes widened. "Bad aliens? Like in the movies?" "Something like that," Q said. "But I'm going to help protect Earth." Jiho thought about this for a moment. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out a sheet of paper. "I made this for you. For good luck." It was another drawing, more detailed than the earlier ones. It showed Earth with a shield around it. Next to the planet stood 2 figures, one tall and clearly not human, one small with a big smile. They were holding hands. This is you protecting Earth, Jiho explained, and me helping you. Q carefully folded the drawing and put it in his pocket with the others. Thank you, he said. A man in a suit opened the door. It's time, he said. Q stood and followed the man down a long hallway to a large room filled with people. Cameras were everywhere. This meeting was being broadcast to the entire world. As Q stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. He looked out at the sea of faces, all human, all watching him with mixtures of fear, curiosity, and hope. Slowly, Q deactivated his human disguise. Gasps filled the room as his true form was revealed. He was taller, his skin a different color, his eyes larger and able to see spectrums humans could not. He was clearly not from Earth, but from the back of the room came a small voice. That's my friend. Jiho had followed Q to the stage. Now he ran forward and took Q's hand. The boy showed no fear, only pride. Cameras flashed. The image of the human child holding hands with the alien being spread across the world in seconds. Q looked down at Jiho, then back at the audience. My name is Q, he began. I was created by the Stellar Dominion to help destroy your world. I was born to annihilate Earth. Murmurs of fear spread through the crowd. Jiho squeezed Q's hand tighter. But then, Q continued, a child gave me a drawing and called me friend. And I learned that there is more to life than the purpose you are given. There is the purpose you choose. He reached into his pocket and held up the first drawing Jiho had given him. I choose to help Earth. I choose friendship over destruction. I choose life over death. The room was silent for a moment. Then slowly, people began to stand. The applause started quietly but grew until it filled the room. Q looked down at Jiho, who was smiling up at him. In that moment, Q knew he had made the right choice. Whatever came next, whatever the Dominion sent to finish what he had refused, to start, they would face it together. He had been born to annihilate Earth, but he had been reborn to protect it. The end.